Welcome to the Art of Service live streaming. It's so good to have you here. I always look at you and I introduce you based on what I know from our history at the Entrepreneurial Masters program. To me, you are a super technical person packed into a very social, high emotive quotient kind of person.
Yeah.
But how do you introduce yourself when you meet new people?
Well, an apt description you just gave. A geek with social skills is in the states here how I refer to myself. Um, and like many people, I am unemployable. I was born into this entrepreneurial mindset, which is not always a blessing, as we all know. And so my life has been spent on creating and building things. And as I'm getting further down my path, I become more focused on finishing things. So
Yeah,
that's where I'm focused now.
that's so cool. And I have been stalking you on LinkedIn and Facebook and everywhere else because um, what I've noticed was 10 years ago. Can you believe, by the way, that it's been 10 years since we did that program?
It is remarkable. Yeah.
It's insane, like that, and it's just gone. But 10 years ago, you seemed to be very focused on the technology, implementing technology for clients, and you were very focused on like computer stuff
Yeah.
to be very
Yeah.
non-classy. That doesn't seem to be that way anymore. You seem to be a lot more active in the whole marketing side of technology, but also with your foundation and, foreshadowing what we're all going to talk about. Can you give me a brief overview of what happened in the last 10 years?
Oh my goodness, there's a lot there. Um, the highlight reel version of that is that I don't know, I had a transition in the way that I approach and view the world. And I spent a lot of my younger life focused on, learning, and then sharing that with as many people as I could. And I came to a point when I realized um, that we're all um, learning as we go, stumbling around, trying to figure out how to get past our insecurities, wanting to be loved, wanting to be liked, wanting to figure things out, whatever it might be. And I came to this realization that the only person that I truly am capable of changing or evolving is me. That conscious leadership is an inside job. There is no one else who can affect that, and I can't affect others. They have to change themselves as well. So I started to really focus on the things that where I felt I could have the most impact. I've known for a long time that I've never really cared about money. Money is not my driving factor. Um, I'm driven by the ability um, to create impact and change. And so when I founded the Do More Good movement, which happened in 2019, there was a long ramp that led up to that. I started doing a research project interviewing companies all over the world who had innovative cultures. And I thought I was going to be writing a book on company culture because I did a TED talk back in 2011, has more than 1 million views, and started to get a lot of feedback from that. And I became known as the guy that built a company with a great culture. My company was featured in Inc. magazine as one of the 50 best companies to work for in America, for example. And
And that's your Firefly company, right?
yeah, that's Fire Spring.
Spring, yeah.
Fire Spring. And so I spent a lot of my time and effort during that phase for maybe 5 years ago, and between 8 and 3 years ago, I was really focused on company culture. And then I came to this realization in talking to 1,000 or more leaders of these companies doing this research for my book that's way more than just about culture. There are so many other aspects to it, and that's when I created the Do More Good movement, which is really doubling down on this belief that business should stand for something more than just putting profits in the pockets of the owners.
Mm.
It should serve all of the stakeholders of that company, the employees, of course, the shareholders, yes, of course, but also the vendors and the other partners in the ecosystem, of course, the clients as well. And there are way too many businesses today that simply do not get that if they don't change the way that they think about serving all of the stakeholders of that business, they're not going to be around in another 5 to 8 years,
Mm.
because there won't be people who will buy their products and services, nor will there be people who want to go to work for those companies. People need to know the why more than ever today, and they need to feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves. So I started to really spend a lot of my time around reframing what it means to be in business, and then educating and empowering other business leaders on how to do that.
Yeah. Wow. That's quite a journey. So can you point the exact moment where you thought this is not a book, this is more? What happened?
I don't know that there is an exact moment, but I do remember a particular conversation that I was having with the CEO of a big tech company. And I was going, he had given me a lot of quotations, and then he gave me one, and it kind of made me pause. And I asked him, are you okay if I, attach your name to this? Or are you okay if I, would share that you said this? And he said, I'd rather you not. I'd rather you leave me anonymous. And he was talking about the fact that his business, a big tech company that a lot of people have heard about, is attracting people to come to work for them because of the way that they bring their team members into not the company values, but that the company honors the personal values of those employees. Instead of thinking about it the other way around, where you hire somebody and you expect them to honor the company's values, he was thinking about it through this other construct of a company honoring the values of the individual people that are coming in to help build this with us, and about all the programs and the things and the approaches they put in place to make those people feel welcome and invigorated to come in and help build this along with all these other people. And that shift in his company, what he said was, if other businesses don't figure this out, then all of your employees are going to come work for us, because and that's why I asked him if we could quote that. He said, no, I prefer you not. But it was that conversation that really hit home with me, that there is a major shift happening. I think it's the biggest transformation in business since the computer age and then the industrial age before that. We're on the precipice of the largest change and shift in business again, and businesses that do not understand that they have to think differently will not survive.
Yeah. So why is that? Because it's really interesting, because it touches on discussions that I've had with other people, where, how in 2012 everybody was like, oh, it's going to be the end of the world, and everything's going to change, and I've had this really strong feeling that there has been a shift in energy since 2012 to here, whereas up to 2012 it seemed to be a lot more almost masculine energy. It's very, a personality, finance driven, rah, 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 rah. Whereas since 2012, there seems to be a shift in the way people interact with companies, the way companies are operating, the way leadership is changing and morphing into a much stronger focus on culture and values. And so I'm just really, really intrigued with how that sits with you. Do you feel that is, am I just, waffling airy fairies, or does it
No,
make sense?
I absolutely love what you're saying, and I'll share something with you. I'm part of another startup that we created about 8 years ago. It's a really fast growing business, and we just are in the process. In fact, we just announced our new name in the last month, because we're moving into a new direction, and we're changing the name. It's meeting software that was originally created to help companies that are running on EOS have really great tools to run their software. So the company was called Traction Tools. We are changing our name to Bloom Growth. And Bloom is, and the interesting thing that's something that really stands out when we started having conversations about the brand and where we were going and where we wanted to go. The very first conversation we had around our branding was we would like it to feel more feminine in its energy.
Mhm.
We have a lot of females that work in our company in leadership positions. In fact, the integrator, the woman that runs the business, is so empowered in terms of how she leads. And to your point, I believe that the feminine energy in business is the energy that is driving the transition to business as a force for good, and business meaning something more than just money in the pockets of the employees and the shareholders.
Yeah.
I believe it's coming from that, and it's funny because my wife and I, on kind of a parallel path, have been doing a lot of work personally around. We go to Burning Man every year. It's been this big thing that we do, and we've really engaged in pretty deep work around tantra and the aspects of like Shakti and Shiva energy, and the aspect of the masculine and the divinely feminine, and how we fit together, and that we all have aspects of of the masculine and feminine in us, and it's in the divine energy that is created in that masculine and feminine parts, that where the beautiful part of life comes from. But I find it interesting that you're heading down that path, and it's something I've been thinking and really processing so much about.
Yeah. It's this whole energy work. It's so intense and intriguing, because I think it will make for better businesses. It will make for more almost human businesses, where the resources that you utilize within your companies are not just numbers, not just happen to be machines with a heartbeat and blood and nerve endings, but it's a team effort. And so I was going to ask you about Burning Man, but I was like, I'm not sure if that's the sort of stuff he wants to talk about, because you're probably the first person I've ever met who is like every year just doing the whole Burning Man thing. And that was 12 years ago, where, to be honest, I'd never heard of Burning Man ever. Like, I was like, what is this thing? And you talked about it, and I'm like, oh, this sounds really cool. But me being this very Dutch Protestant brought up culture person, I was like, I don't know. But you talked about it like so invigorating. And then the last 12 years, like, there's more and more people that I hear that are, and I know within the EO community, it's like a big thing and a bigger thing, but there's just more and more people that are really attaching to that. It's not just about the materialistic side of things. Like, how has that changed your business to have this other side of you?
Yeah. There's a lot there. And it's funny, some folks, the last Burning Man before the pandemic, and so it would have been 2019, we had this amazing couple just kind of randomly camped right next to where we were, from the Netherlands. And they have become very dear friends. But it was funny because at the beginning of the week, they were kind of talking the same way you just,
it's such a cultural thing, isn't it?
Yeah. But by the end of the week, they were just letting it all loose and going at it. So the thing about Burning Man that has affected my business and my outlook on business in general, that I think is so profound, are the fundamental tenets. There are 10 principles of Burning Man. And the few that stand out to me, especially as it correlates and relates to ways that I can use these principles in business and life. Number one is radical inclusion. When people go there, 85,000 people from all over the world, including the Netherlands, are gathering together in the middle of one of the harshest environments in the world, like one of the top 3 harshest, driest environments in the entire world. It's crazy if you think about what you're doing. You're going to the middle of the desert. The sand on the playa in Black Rock City, which is about an hour north of Reno, Nevada, in the States. The sand is twice as fine as talcum powder. So if you think of talcum powder, how fine it is, it's when they say, you go to Burning Man and get dust in curious places, that is true. You cannot avoid it. It gets everywhere. So this hard environment where you have to bring everything you use. So that's another principle, is radical self-reliance. Everything that you need, use, eat, drink. The only thing you can purchase there is ice. That's it.
Yeah.
There's the saying, the playa provides. So if you're there and you've forgotten something, or you need water, or whatever, of course the community will support you. So there's this radical expression, this radical inclusion, the way that people support one another and just build each other up. I've never had a conversation at Burning Man ever where anyone's asked me, what do you do for a living? It's not something to talk about. It's not that kind of conversation. My favorite experience this last year, the one we just came back from a few weeks ago, this beautiful, just absolutely sweet, precious 25-year-old female by herself showed up, camped next to us in her Prius with a little pop-up camper on the back, which is not a good setup for Burning Man. It means that she was sleeping in an inch of desert dust every night because it just gets everywhere. But she just happened to randomly plop down next to us. And I learned on the second day that, again, she's 25 years old, that she would have been celebrating the 3rd anniversary of her marriage on the second day of Burning Man. But she decided, when her husband decided he wanted a divorce, which was his decision, she didn't really know what to do. She's been lost. And a month ago, she decided, I'm just going to get in my car and drive. And she had a job where she could work remotely, and she was staying at like national parks. Somewhere along the way, she met someone who gave her a ticket to Burning Man. And she said, okay, I'm going to go. And she shows up, randomly plops down next to us. And she says, I just had an exchange with her this morning on text message. She said that my wife and I and the others that we were camped around have changed her life. And I told her, you've changed mine way more than we could have ever changed yours. She just gave me so much hope in the future, to come to a place like that with that harsh environment by yourself when you're trying to find yourself and you're struggling, and just watching her bloom over the course of 7 days, just in her spirit and in her energy, and the emanated light that she put out to the world. Every single person she came across by the last 4 days, she lit up their world with just her positive lightness and energy. And she came into that seeking to find that for herself, and she ended up just giving it to everyone else. It just transformed her. And that's the kind of thing you see all the time. And that kind of energy and that kind of exposure to radical inclusion, radical self-reliance, radical self-expression, all of those things can be applied in our businesses and in the way we do business with one another every day.
Yeah, because that was the question that started to bubble up in the back of my head. Like, how do you translate that into your business or businesses? Mm-hmm. How do you take that across, and how do you include your teams in that?
Yeah, it's a spirit of meaning, openness, connection that you can model and you can learn in a way. And the other thing, it's like when I say radical inclusion, we are talking about not just accepting differences, but celebrating differences, and just having deep appreciation for how this person might respond or believe about a certain event. And in the States, it's so politically divisive right now. There's liberals and there's right wing, and everybody's fighting with each other about their turf, and then there are people that really feel confident enough that they know, just because you might listen, if you and I, Ivanka, have completely different opinions on something, just because I listen to you doesn't mean I have to agree with you. I can still listen with intention and empathy and openness. And at the end of that conversation, still love and cherish and adore you, which I do, and not feel like we have to bang heads just because we might feel differently about something. That's the kind of thing that
Mhm.
you see at Burning Man all over. It's people just accepting and celebrating the differences in others. And
Mm.
that's a great business lesson, in my opinion. I think there are a few things we can do in the cultures of our companies as we're building companies that have a higher return on value than, as I said earlier, honoring the values of each individual person and then celebrating the differences rather than just accepting them or forcing them to live the values of the company.
Yeah, yeah. So how can we use that feeling, that knowledge, that understanding, that way of, like, because you said there were 85,000 people this year. How can we have that ripple effect across the world? Because on the other side, what you're saying, it's so divisive. It's so us versus them. It's so I'm offended. I'm this. I'm that. It's like it almost feels like the art of empathy and the art of healthy debate and discussion is lost, and empathy with a capital E. Because so how can we as business owners that do feel this way, how can we use that ripple effect across the world to do more good?
Yeah,
Because I'm
that's
reading behind your head.
no, yes, it's such a great question, and it's a great question because there are no easy answers. You know, if we knew an easy path to that, then I believe that we as humans would be seeking that path.
Mm.
Um, but people get so caught up in their own heads and their own beliefs, and digging their trenches, you know, to protect their turf, that they just simply can't get out of it. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I think will and already is in the process of transforming the world as we know it, is this whole space around those that are starting to open their mind a little bit to using psychedelics in
Mm.
a mindful way. I'm not talking about going to a rave or a party and, you know, whatever. I'm talking about using psychedelics, whether it's psilocybin or, you know, or ketamine or MDMA or whatever it might be, in a controlled way with a mindset in a proper set and setting under the guidance of a professional, to really seek what's deeper inside and to connect with an aspect of your consciousness that allows you to see for the first time, you know, this
Mm.
energy we were talking about with your own eyes, instead of just believing that it's there, seeing it and feeling it. I believe that if we could get to the point where the world leaders, let's just say Putin, for example, were to have an experience in this divine consciousness that we all have, I believe it would change the world.
Mm.
I believe that it will change the world. And, you know, for millennia, you know, you can go back to the beginning of time in all cultures across the world. Every culture, with the exception of one, the Inuit people,
Mm.
that, you know, because it was snow, nothing grew there, so there were no
Too
plant-based medicine.
cold.
It was too cold. With the exception of that culture, every culture in the history of civilization for millennia has had some kind of rite of passage in their cultures when they would have this experience on, you know, whether it's you know, peyote or DMT or psilocybin, whatever it was, they all had these experiences, and then organized religion kind of
Mm.
clamped down on it because they needed to kind of control things a little bit, and then it turned, and then there were a lot of things more currently in the last, you know, 50 to 60 years in different parts of the world where it's continued to get more difficult, but we're seeing that freeing up now. And I know it sounds really way out there, but I'm a firm believer that that very mindfully approaching the space of using plant-based, you know, things that grow naturally on the planet, plant-based psychedelics, and giving people the ability to firsthand experience that aspect of their consciousness. I think that's the thing that will get us to finally change the way that we think about, you know, this divisiveness, it's me versus you. When you see with your own eyes that we are all connected, we
Mm.
all share the same, you know, energy, the same light, and there's this interplay and dance that you can see in that space that you cannot see anywhere else. when you see it with your own eyes, it will change you. And I've talked to hundreds of people that have had these experiences, and it's nearly a universal, hell yes.
Yeah. 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 We're so blinkered, aren't we? We're so like, this is what I know, and everything outside is scary, and I don't want to know about that. And we feel we have this control over what's right in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
But as entrepreneurs, we know that we do not have control.
That's so true.
We only have a little bit of control. So with all that, because I love this stuff, and I can talk about this for hours, because this really, really intrigues me. And I'm actually listening to an audiobook at the moment by Michael Singer. It's the follow-up of The Untethered Soul, and that's very much around the whole energy flowing and how everything is connected, and what we see in front of us is not what another person sees in front of us, and how every experience is different. So it really connects with what you're saying as well. And I'm just constantly thinking of, how can I help my clients? How can I help my employees, my team, to really grow together as a community, to build better businesses and to build better communities, for lack of a better word.
You bring up Michael Singer, and I think that's a perfect example of how it can help benefit business. His whole mantra is how we can untie ourselves from our ego by harnessing our energy and expand beyond ourselves and float through this river of life instead of blocking or fighting it. And if you try to think about the aspect of what that means in life, and you just approach that same philosophy to business, it's so powerful. The mindset of meditation and patience that you get from really doing the work around this is so powerful in a business setting. And so, I think, again, I'm grateful you brought him up as an example, because his work resonates so deeply, I believe, with the direction that businesses should be focused today. We hear all this stuff about, we've got to be competitive, we've got to crush the competitors, got to do this, and then we start to think about, okay, that's a scarcity mindset. Stephen Covey wrote about that in his 7 Habits of Highly Effective Leaders decades ago. It was brilliant work. And then we started to think about, the opposite of the scarcity mindset is the abundance mindset, the mindset that there is enough for all of us. And it's such a much more healthy way to run a company, to be operating that company with a mindset of abundance, as opposed to a mindset of scarcity, because then then we believe it's profit because of purpose, not purpose before profit. It's profit because of purpose. Let's just focus on the right thing. And so many people get caught up in this mindset that all we need to be focused on in business is making enough money to pay ourselves and others, and it's such a dismal, lonely path to be on.
Yeah. So purpose, it's such a loaded word for a lot of people. Like, purpose in business, purpose for Jay. What's your purpose?
My purpose, I recently just kind of shifted my purpose. When I was 18 years old, I went through this leadership workshop, and I defined my purpose. It was one of those projects that took us 3 weeks, and we came back to these classes and had all pages full of stuff. And then I finally distilled it down to add value and evolve. That was my purpose that I operated on for the last 40 years of my life. And then I came to the realization that there was an aspect of my purpose that was holding me back. The add value part. I came to this realization that I was saying I was saying yes to way too many things because I knew it was ingrained in my ethos that I had to, whenever I was in a conversation or with a group, I had to bring value to the conversation somehow. I was just like incredibly mindful of that always because it was ingrained as my purpose. And I got to the point where I realized that I was so horrible at saying no that I ended up living someone else's version of my life, the version that they all think I should live and not mine. And I kind of put a hard stop on that. And I changed my mission statement to say that my mission now in life is to curate my own consciousness and be a catalyst for others to do the same. Again, pointing the fingers back at me. I'm not here to change anyone else's life or world or give advice or to, as an entrepreneur and a type A personality, I'm kind of offended when people are always trying to tell me, you should do this, you should do that. You don't know me. How can you tell me what I should do?
Go away.
Yeah, I prefer when people share their story or show me through their actions who they are and let me learn from that. I get so much more out of that. And I've always known that, but I never really lived that way. I got caught up for so long in, trying to give advice or to help people when all I really needed to be focused on is curating, my own consciousness and how I show up in the world, and let that be the lesson itself. And so that's what I've been focused on for the last couple of years. And it has led to some pretty, profound shifts in how I spend my days, and what I'm focused on and what I'm not. I'm spending a lot less time in my businesses and a lot more time on the Do More Good movement and the work I'm doing around that, and a lot more time in conversations and in partnership with a lot of young people that are in my world. I've been volunteering for 40 years for an organization called Launch Leadership, this summer camp that I attended when I was a kid that changed my life. I went begrudgingly because I got elected to serve on a student council in my high school. And they said, well, to serve, you have to go to this leadership camp. And I was like, oh, shit, that sounds horrible. My 15-year-old brain was like, I don't want to do that. No way. But I went, and it changed my life. It taught me servant leadership, and I got to be exposed to all kinds of people who were not like me in the homogenous community I grew up in. And so I've been going back and volunteering every year. I lead my own group of 12 students twice a year because we now do 2 workshops. So I have 24 kids that come through, and I get to be with them for 5 nights at this summer camp. And I'm their leader in this group, and just kind of mold them into this realization that you can be, there's all these trite things. You can be whatever you want to be, whatever. And it gets overblown and overrated. But the most important thing is you don't have to be what your parents think you are, or your grandparents, or your friends at home, whatever life circumstance you've been born into, your family of origin, and whatever community you're from. Letting them understand and realize that those are important influences and aspects of our lives, but you are whoever you are and whoever you choose to become. It's never too late to be who you might have been, and you can start now or you can wait. Why not start now? Yeah. So just really working through this process. And so I've been spending a lot more of my time in partnership and mentorship with a lot of just amazing young people that inspire the hell out of me, and a lot more time on the Do More Good movement.
Yeah. Those young people, do you stay in touch with them? Like you have 5 nights with them. Do you then follow what they do afterwards?
Yeah, in fact, it's kind of a weird connection on this, but the Do More Good movement was something that I had been talking about for 7 or 8 years. I didn't have the name of it yet. I was working on this various iterations of how we can help business leaders see the light that we have to make decisions that will take us down a path that feeds the future of our company instead of continues to focus only on the money part. I've been talking about this with one of my former students at this workshop, In fact, he was randomly assigned to my group of 12 kids. I don't even know what year. It was probably like 2009. In fact, I think it was 2009. He was a freshman in high school, got randomly put in my group, and we stayed connected over the years. He went to college, got this great education, then he went to work, got a great job, and I kept talking to him. We would talk every few months, and then he calls me up one day, says, Jay, I don't want to do what I'm doing anymore. I want to come back and I want to help get this thing you keep talking about, the Do More Good movement. I want to help get that off the ground. He is the co-founder of the organization, and he's the one that runs it full time now. And so that's just an example of somebody that came through that program I just mentioned, and how it kept us connected and put us together so that we could create something that is really, really cool.
Yeah. I love how your eyes light up when you talk about that. Like, you're so proud of that boy.
I am so proud. You have no idea how proud I am.
Yeah, that's so super cool. And the Do More Good movement, what activities does it do? How does it operate? What's happening in there?
Yes, the pandemic put us a little bit on our ear because we had planned a massive kind of workshop expansion that we weren't able to really execute on, but we are now in the process of kind of full circling back to that. So we do have an annual conference. Our next conference is March 21 and 22 of 2023. And that conference is going to be available both online or in person in Nebraska, in Lincoln, Nebraska, the middle of everywhere, as we like to say. And it's funny because our board of advisors are like literally the Mount Rushmore of the people that are changing the world through business. So Kate Williams, the CEO of 1% for the Planet, and Rand Stagen, who is the co-founder of Conscious Capitalism, the one that really seeded the idea with John Mackey, who then wrote the book, and Jay Cohen Gilbert, who is the co-founder of Certified B Corporations, and Preeta Bansal was the chief legal counsel in President Obama's White House, who created benefit corporation legislation in the States that is now passed in 37 of the states, and soon will be in all of them. But these are the four largest frameworks around putting purpose into business, or giving and that's our board. So I'm really proud of that in terms of where that's going to take us. But we have an annual conference. We are doing workshops initially in the States and then eventually all over the world that will teach business leaders on how to navigate their path to purpose, because it's not the same for every business. Every business, can and should approach it from their own unique lens. And so we want to give examples and teach all the different frameworks that a business can take to really lock in on making sure that they are focused on the right things. As part of that, we have a huge directory of fellow travelers, all these other organizations around the world that are doing similar work. We're building the world's largest social enterprise library with examples and case studies of how different business leaders are approaching these various things. We're partnering with journalism colleges around the US to create content, to give students an opportunity to interview business leaders that are doing amazing things, write stories about them, and then populate the content. We have a podcast and a weekly live stream that we'll be launching here after I think they launch in November. So all kinds of different ways.
Fantastic. And then really practical, like, okay, my business, Art of Service, been around for 20 something year. Like, what we do is we really help our clients sustain control of compliance and risk management. So we offer self-assessments and questionnaires and all sorts of support around that. How can I use my business and the services, the compliance and risk management services we offer to do more good?
Well, it starts inside the wall. It starts with the people that you employ, and the people that you contract with, and the people that you're partnered with to deliver the products and services. It always starts inside. Again, conscious leadership is an inside job. So everything that every company does, in my opinion, needs to start inside their own walls first. And there's this culture of inclusion that oftentimes is misunderstood in terms of what it means in companies that are really trying to figure out. And by that I mean a lot of times business leaders spend a lot of their time going to workshops and events and learning, and then they come back and they sit down with their team, and their team probably has that deer in the headlight look because like it's, oh shit, Ivanka went to a conference and now everything's going to change, you know. So one of the things that we've learned in having discussions with hundreds of these companies that are just really doing great is it's not the CEOs and the founders that are going to these conferences. It's the people inside the organizations that are coming back on fire to try to implement, and giving them the authority and the expectation that you're going to go to this and you're going to come back and we're going to have a lunch and learn and you're going to tell us everything you learned, you know. So we're constantly learning from each other, and it's not just like a few people, especially the founder, owner, CEO, making decisions and then cascading it down. When it comes from the middle up and down, it's so much more powerful. So that's one thing. It always starts inside the walls. And then being mindful and conscious of doing business in a way that pays attention to who we're doing business with and who we're partnering with. For example, at FireSpring, we survey and ask our vendors about certain things. There are things we want to know about how they approach, carbon neutrality and things like that. And we actually have a little grading scale that we give our vendors because we want to work with companies that care about, social and environmental issues. It's the way that we think and the way we're wired. So we want to work with companies that are like-minded. And so we check. We don't just necessarily put out an RFP and say, all right, there are 14 vendors. Who's the cheapest? We will take that RFP and say, we're going to choose the 3 that are most aligned with us. And then we'll pick the cheapest of those 3. That's kind of the way we approach it.
Yeah.
It's not always about lowest cost. It's about first, who's a value fit with us. And then from those remaining, then we can go after the best cost. So I'm not saying we don't, we want the best cost vendor is going to help us in so many ways, but we also need to be aligned in how we approach business, and that we care about all of the stakeholders in the ecosystem and not just the almighty dollar.
Yeah. Oh, that's really practical. I like that. Thank you. That's a good way. And the other thing that I was going to ask you, because when you talked about the young people and your coaching and mentoring and supporting them, one of the things that I've been doing over the last 5 years is coaching accelerators. And I'm very involved with the whole accelerator program, which I love because I love helping growing those businesses and to really, really share my stories and my experiences. So from your experience, your story, because you have a completely different journey, what is the one thing you would share with accelerators to help them, not just financially to get from that $250,000 to $1 million in top line revenue, but what's the one big piece of experience that you can share for accelerators?
I think it's really simple, actually. I don't know that it's a big piece of experience, and it's something that I said a little bit earlier, that it's never too late to be who you might have been. And we forget that over and over and over. I forget it, and I say it all the time. And it's about starting. It's about making a decision. And then this concept of we need to get people to buy in. I hate that concept. We need to get them to enroll. We need to get them to connect all the dots themselves so that they feel 100% on board, right? It's not about selling them on certain things, but we get everybody together. We make a commitment to starting something tomorrow that's different than something we might have been doing yesterday. And just freaking do it. I really believe that it's that simple, and it doesn't have to be, a 12-step program that you go to school for 6 months to learn. and learn, the disciplines of 100 masters, and then come back. And I mean, that we're all waiting for something to happen where something clicks, when the magic is in just making a commitment and doing it and starting now. Don't wait. It's so powerful, and it's so elusive to so many, because we just get so caught up until the someday I'm going to have this figured out.
And also people like to talk about things, but actually doing it is a different
thing. Exactly.
Yeah, it's the whole. Actually, you may have seen my thing on the whiteboard in the back.
Wait, no.
After my discussion with John, he was talking about his a book he's reading, Die with Zero, on really utilizing all the the financial wealth that you've built up over the years, but using it in creating experiences for yourself, for the people you love, for what's important to you. And he was talking about not so much a bucket list, but a time bucket. So that's why I was like, okay, from 50 to 70, keep my weight low. This is what I want to do. And then from 70 to 80, I want to do this. And then from 80 to 90, do this. So have experiences, and like back to your purpose, like helping, adding that value without constantly jumping into everything, but have experiences rather than materialistic things, and really create that ripple effect within my own family, within my groups.
I love that.
So that's why every time I do a live stream, I'm like, should I get that off the board? But then again,
no, leave it up. I love it.
It's my time buckets.
Love it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Jay. Is there anything you want to add, or that you sort of went like, you didn't really ask more questions about this particular subject, and I'm really keen to talk about it.
We've been all over the board today. We talked about consciousness and Tantra and Burning Man and business. So, it's all good.
Well, life is a package.
Yeah, life is a package. I love what the last thing you said. And so I'll just double down on that. The concept of growing through experience is such an important thing for people to know and to realize. When my wife and I got married, we made a bucket list to have it. One of the things on there is to have a meaningful experience in 100 countries together. So if I travel somewhere and she's not with me, it doesn't count. Or if we, lay over in a city and we don't get to leave the airport, it doesn't count, whatever. And there's something so just powerful about the kind of experiences that we've had when we go into countries or places around the world where we're not, although it's delightful and wonderful to stay at Four Seasons, don't get me wrong, but to go in and actually immerse in a culture and spend a week and go visit a school and make a pre-arrangement with the school, which we love to do. And then ask like a small school in Fiji, for example, like what do you need? Soccer balls or footballs, whatever. And to spend time with people and their families in small communities, we have learned more and we've grown more from those experiences than reading any book, watching any movie, anything we've ever done in our own neighborhood or in our own community. So I think that if there's a strong message around experiences and exploration, I would encourage everyone to consider how to make that happen in your life.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And also, in addition to that, the experience of being self-reliant, because that's something that I picked up from your Burning Man experience, the self-reliance. And the reason why I picked that up is because Gerard, my husband, and my son Frank are getting ready for a 4 to 10 day hiking trek, depending on what's going to happen in the middle of nowhere in Tasmania. So they're prepping, they're laminating maps, and they're sorting out like how much food do we need to bring, like, because it is self-reliant. There's no GPS. There is GPS, but there's no cell phone reception. There may or may not be a path. And
I
I'm at
love
home.
it.
So
Yeah.
it's but it's so much fun to watch their
Hmm.
process of setting it up together and planning and prepping and
Beautiful.
yeah, this whole back to nature, self-reliant, like no comforts whatsoever,
Yeah.
nothing.
Love it. It's going to tap into a part of their brain and create connections in their relationship that they'll remember for the rest of their lives. And I love it.
Yeah, exactly. So Jay, thank you so much for sharing your story. And if there's anything you want my support with, reach out. And yeah, please stay in touch. I'll keep stalking you. We're probably going to do a reunion, I think, next year
Oh, fantastic.
for the EMP program. So that'll be really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, Barry's
Well,
probably organizing that.
same to you. It's always fantastic when I get a chance to chat with you. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to end the stream now, but don't run away because I just want to have another chat.